The birth of history. So, what was the main topic of this chapter, you guys?
It was talking about primarily the three different religions, or three different cultures.
And how they viewed history, yeah.
Yeah, how they viewed history.
And actually, like, how they started recording it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the first of those was the Hindus. So, how was their religion of the multiple cycles, how did that affect their view of history?
That's what they were focusing on instead of history. They made up a fake history, as it were. Because they believed of this life from Brahman, and it's a bajillion-year-long thing, and that's what they were focusing on.
And, if you recreate a world, you can't really know what happened in the last world.
And it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So, yeah.
Because what is it,
They just focused on the Golden Age, right? Was this the Golden Age?
Yeah, well, it's just that a new god recreates humans every 306 million years, isn't it? And, I guess history is still important, then, if it's 306 million years. That's a long time shouldn't you still be caring about history?
Maybe not.
Maybe it's not ultimate.
Yeah.
So, how about the Muslims? I was a little confused. The Muslims, they have two different parts. At first it talked about how they studied history a lot and they recorded it, and then later it talked about how they really only cared about what happened to Muslims. So, do you guys know what that was talking about? Because it says here, after the 11th century, when the Muslims and Indians, records of the India's past were given a new shape. So it talks about how they were telling the stories, but then later it says Muhammad himself was the climax of history. So there was no need for progress anywhere else. So you guys know how that transitioned from recording history to only caring what happened to Muslims?
I don't specifically remember what it talked about, but it sounds like, from what you're saying, it seems like they just, if the greatest thing in history has already happened, why do we need to care about anything else?
I have the notion that Muslims did the history of the previous generation, but not their own generation. So they'd always, they'd write the history of the previous dynasty instead of writing the history while you're living in it, which makes it a lot easier.
It says here that history, naturally enough, Muslim histories became histories of only Muslims. Right at the bottom of 559. So I guess it's just the winners of history generally win.
Right history.
The winners generally write history. And finally, the Chinese.
No, don't leave the Muslims just yet.
Okay.
Interesting sentence around the bend on 560. Because in Muslim institutions there could be no novelty, but only the fulfillment of the Quran, Muslim biographies could not have the dignity of new knowledge. History, in the Muslim phrase, became merely a conversational science, helpful for political wisdom and social skill, a source for illustrations, but not for demonstrations. The historian appropriately called himself a compiler of the stories of their crusades and successes.
So pretty much it would be like saying, oh, I don't need to know a Christian history because I have the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible's history enough for me is kind of what they're saying.
And so, anything that's pertinent to the Bible, something like
the Holocaust.
Jews.
But also a book like Ravi Zacharias' book that's pertinent to the Bible, so that would be recorded.
Well, more like the Crusades.
Or like the Crusades as well. But something like that.
Is it maybe talking about how if we know the creation, why do we need anything else? We know the creation story, why do we need anything else?
Well, yeah, going back to the point, if Muhammad is the high point of history, what's the point of recording anything else?
Yeah.
Well, here's the answer. The answer's right here. It says, for political wisdom and social skill, a source for illustrations.
Yeah, so for understanding the high point of history.
Right, or for winning the next election. If you know what happened in Vietnam, you can, deal with Syria better, and that's why we need to know about history.
Yeah.
Dealing with the next.
Well, yeah, that's what we think.
So
I don't think that's what they
moving
thought.
on, how did the Chinese,
Political wisdom.
how did their ancestor worship encourage history, and how did their consistent society of having a long-lasting empire help develop history for them?
You would. I'm not sure I follow.
Aren't they the culture that keeps history kind of in a dynasty sort of way? In fact, I think they reset the clock when a new emperor comes in.
We make a calendar.
Really?
So, the calendar. So they're not interested in the overall arcing of their people. Not that they were a united people until Genghis Khan, but they're just interested in what happens in these ages.
Yeah, so like they're just more interested in happening. Why is my dynasty the best dynasty in China has ever seen? Basically.
So the empire would
Let's see.
make them.
So it only record the empire's history.
Well, so what it says here is it says Confucianism rooted in ancestor worship encouraged record keeping for genealogies.
So what was I saying about ancestors like being related? That's being related to Muhammad.
Well,
Is that why they worship?
Well, they worship their ancestors in that. So, in order to truly worship your ancestors, if you had a better understanding of what you worship, then you could better worship it.
Okay.
But like you said, Ms. Soren, since they changed the calendar, it was hard. That was a hindrance to their record keeping. Yeah.
That's right.
So now that we've done these, what do you think the modern view of history, with the modern view of atheism, how does that affect our view of history? What do you guys think?
With the secular
With the secular
mentality,
idea of
not seeing
atheism.
Christ as
Yeah.
being the most important part of history.
Mhm.
Well, then, you want to take in all of history because then you can learn from what we've done in the past, whether that be the Romans or the Greeks or the or whatever, and you want to learn everything you can so you don't make the mistakes of the past.
The idea of evolution too.
Yeah. So, seeing what we did wrong and
Yeah.
avoiding that evolutionary.
I think the modern view of history is a modern view of history. It's not only in certain religions. Every religion would like history. Sorry, okay, after this.
No. I was thinking that without Christ, if you're not looking at history through the lens that Christ was the most important thing of history, that all history led to it and all history proceeds from it, if you're without that focus, I have a feeling that many people think that it's a story of the progressing improvement of man.
Civilization, yeah.
Yeah, that we're getting better and bigger, and what we experience in our culture is all that matters. That it's inconsequential what came before because they weren't as, they didn't have computers. They hold on. Just remember there are many people who conflate or confuse the technology we've come up with a genuine progression in the character and ability of man.
Well, so if you look at the world around us, though, I guess I'm refining the question. There's such an emphasis on how did we come to be? What was the beginning? And evidence. We need evidence. And I'm curious, how do you think that relates, how that view of history, of wanting to prove it, wanting concrete evidence, relates to our worldview, just our basic beliefs, our country's basic beliefs?
Isn't it postmodernism that doesn't believe whatever it's told? It's the idea that we are presenting authority, and I don't trust you. I have to do all the research myself. And maybe that's also seen in our history where you have to evidence for things.
So I guess we have to discover the past and make our own decisions about it.
Our historian is pretty clear. We know that
Yeah, we can-
historians write a story they connect the dots the way they want to. Like the guy
can't-
who created the U.S. History Patriots Guide had a different purpose in connecting dots than his predecessor, the one who's of the, what's the name? The book your mom has?
People's history.
The people's history, right, where they're looking at the people who lost, the people groups who don't have much of a voice, and he amplified their contribution to history, or he told the story from the loser's point of view.
Well, it's like you have to do that though, because you're never going to be, unless you make a history book that's the size of a room, you're never going to be able to tell everyone's point of view and everyone's perspective and every detail and every way everyone felt.
Right, so what was